Hello, Sharif here, and I hope my audio is working. I'm looking, and it says it's working, but I'm not hearing anything. Hope you are hearing something. So I'm Sharif Abdullah, and this is our next installment on the book that I wrote some years ago and have been reading the Chronicles of the Upheavals. And today we've got, I think, a pretty interesting section looking at how do we provide for security in a really unsecure world? How do we provide for security in a situation where we are pledged to nonviolence, but the people who are coming after us are definitely not. Before I go any further into it, let's go ahead and get formally started the way we usually do, and setting my timer for 5 minutes for our meditation. And let me also punch up our meditation candle for those who would rather not close your eyes in your meditation. But for those who do, I will encourage you to do so now. And I will ask you on your own to take three really deep breaths. And when you let the breath out, you should make it should be audible. This helps it to go all the way through your body. Okay. So I will invite you to come to our center where we're going to, we are going to put on our glasses and let's go ahead and get started. As I've told you before, we're reading from my book, The Chronicles of the Upheavals, and today we're picking out the chapters, the stories that have to do with security inside of the awakening centers. If you look at the number of chapters that I dedicate to security, you'll know that it's a really, really big deal. Okay, I'm there are times when I think I overplayed it, but then when you start thinking about what is it going to be like um, to try to be doing something new when you have all sorts of crazies who don't want you to do that new thing. Now, some of them are the folks that you've got out there right now, um, who don't have enough, or at least believe they don't have enough, and want to take away from you what you've got. Um, how do you stop them? Well, traditionally, the way you stop them is to get a really big gun or a lot of really big guns, and you point them at people and scare them away, or you pull the trigger and kill them, and that's the end of your problem, right? Wrong. It's not the end of your problem. In fact, at that point, you are your problem. Um, so if we're not doing the violence thing, how do we provide security in a situation where we know it's going to be insecure? Um, the way that we're designing the awakening centers, we're going to have food, and there's a whole lot of people who won't. We'll have roofs over our heads, and there's a whole lot of people who won't. And so, how do you balance that out? Then you've got your regular crazies, people who just don't fit into an existing um, societal framework. Um, the people we can see in any city from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, and everything in between, um, who are walking down our streets, screaming, crying, cursing, etc. They don't fit into the existing breaker society, and they also don't fit into um, any anybody else's society or any other society. What do you do with them? Um, our society, the current breaker society, just ignores them, just leaves them on the street. If they break some law, they arrest them, maybe. And if they don't, they just stay on the street and continue to degrade the quality of life of your city. And there are people who think that's okay. And then in the book, there's another level of crazy. These are the people who um, understand what the society, what the Mender Society is trying to create. They understand what the awakening centers are about, and they don't like it. They've got some religious or political belief that says if you exist, then that's bad for us. And so you'll have ideologues coming after, oh no, we will have ideologues coming after us. And how do you deal with that when you have made a pledge to nonviolence? So I've grouped um, some of the chapters that deal with security. I mean, lots and lots of chapters to deal with security, and I've talked with uh, a number of people who have helped me to put them together into categories. Okay, um, so one category, and I'm looking for my notes right now. One category we've talked a little bit about before, where the chapter isn't about security, but there's security issues that come up in it. Last week, when I was talking about how things work, um, that uh, people have the muscle train that the novices were powering to get from here to there, the bamboo train. And they said, "Oh yeah, they try to stop the train and rob it." And what we didn't. What we did was stepped on the. I would say in my generation, step on the gas. They stepped on the electricity and shot past the people who were going to be robbing them. Um, the In the moving the water through the hydrogen blimps from places that had too much water to places that had too little water. Um, there were people trying to bring down the blimps, and they were shooting flaming arrows at the blimp, not understanding that the hydrogen was on the top, um, several thousand feet away from an arrow, and the part that was on the bottom was filled with water, and so they were shooting arrows at a bag full of water, which didn't do very much damage. Okay, but then there's other levels um, of uh, security. And so let's look at one level right now. And this is in a few chapters. Um, oh, and someone asked me to make sure I said the page numbers, because there are people who want to follow along with it with me. Um, the food wagon is on page 116. The strike is on page 206, and the category 3 security breach is on page 240. So let's look at the food wagon first. Um, in this, the novices are asked to ride on a wagon that is stuffed with food and is pulled by horses from a farm to a nearby city. Well, it's really, really obvious that if you've got food in a wagon that is being pulled by horses, um, that this is a really, really slow way to move, and it's done that way on purpose. The um, the Awakening Center could use their hydrogen-filled blimps to fly the food there. It could fly it at night. No one would hear them. No one would see them. The food would get to its location faster than by horses. The purpose of the horse wagon is to draw out opposition, to make the people who are opposing what the Awakening Center is doing, make them obvious, make them make a move, so that the security of the Awakening Center can counter the move. Um, as one of the novices says in that chapter, we're bait, and it's bait. They're bait for a trap. And um, actually, in the second book, Chronicles of the Awakening, the trap gets sprung, and with interesting results. Okay, so in but the notion of let's not wait for the opposition to figure out what it how to disrupt our lives. Let's do something that's going to draw them out so that we then can disrupt their lives. And how they do that is an interesting story. Okay, in the second chapter I suggested to you, um, you really need to read the whole book, okay? Because there's a chapter where the novices are asked to practice telepathy with a family of crows that is inhabiting the Awakening Center space, and to great effect, they are able to create a telepathic bond with them, and this is done on purpose because the crows will give the people at the Awakening Center, the security at the Awakening Center, advance notice if somebody's trying to get over their fence, if somebody means them harm. And this relationship between the crows and the people is mutually beneficial. The chapter called The Strike shows that the relationship between the crows and the people could be more beneficial. Um, the crows want something, and what they want is a space, a territory within the Awakening Center that is a human free zone. Um, they just want to be crows, and they want a place where they can do that. And they go on strike until they get it. The strike is instigated by some of the humans, and it's kind of funny that this is showing a weak spot in their security, but the novices get reprimanded for showing this weak spot in their security. On a more serious matter is the chapter that's called Incident Report, Category 3 Security Breach. Without going into it, it shows what the security looks like when someone is armed and serious about coming across your fence. A large part of that is the fact that as we are operating holonically, as we're operating in complete telepathic connection with each other and complete telepathic connection with the people who are coming across the fence, they will know in advance. They will broadcast in advance their hey, we're coming to steal from you, etc. And the folks in the Awakening Center can be ready. And this particular chapter is showing, though, that there's a group that is opposing the Awakening Center, and that they actually have some holonic powers of their own. And that starts getting interesting. How do you counter someone who can block your telepathy? That gets interesting. And there are several chapters in both of the books that are dedicated to that. Okay, so let's take a look at the second group of security issues, and that is a lesson in center justice, which is page 251, the Tampa Accords, which is page 276, and on a collection jumper team, which is page 286. And remember, for those of you who are reading the book, you already know these are short chapters, basically transcripts, and you can and they move along pretty quickly. Okay, so in this lesson for centered justice, one of the things that chapter does is it talks about how do you um, provide for security, um, incorporating physical means and also incorporating the means of our holonic consciousness? How do you get both of these things working and moving together? That I think is really interesting, and it also, and I cringe a little bit when I talk about it. It also looks at some old world ways of providing security, and uh, the I won't go into it here, but several of the people in the centers are questioning, are you sure that we should be doing X or Y or Z? And so there are questions on how you can what's the best way to provide security. Um, the um, the Tampa Accords is interesting in that how do you provide security in an area where the police and the city structure are not in your favor? In the Tampa Accords, the police chief just wants to go into the center, guns blazing, and take the food that they've got and give them to the people in Tampa. Believe me, that's going to be the solution that a lot of people um, will want to try when we get to the place in the upheavals where awakening centers are a reality and are going to have to face that reality of trigger happy cops, and people thinking there's a really, really easy way to get your to get the food that your group needs. I'm actually going to skip the collection jumper team right now because I think I'm going to be covering that. I think that fits better in what I'm going to be covering next Thursday. Okay, so let's look at the third grouping um, of chapters that deal with security, um, and that includes water and energy wars and accommodation on page 312, managing the enemy on page 325, and Fresno Falls on page 381. On the water and energy wars, in each one of these, the awakening centers are literally face to face with the people who are opposing them. Um, in the water and energy wars, you can't get more face to face than that. When an armed group shows up at your gate, um, guns loaded, trucks ready to come in and take the food and supplies from the awakening center, and they are motivated enough to pull the triggers if they get any opposition. How do you stop them? Um, it was again uh, um, an interesting challenge and an interesting solution. The one thing that the security team says is that no one has ever taken anything out of an awakening center yet. No one's ever done it. And You don't know why. So there's this mystique that surrounds the Awakening Center, that they can do things that we can't do. They see things that we can't see. And therefore, it's really a mistake to try to take anything by force. The only thing that you know is that you'll lose. And you don't even know how you lose. You just know that you lose. Um, the Awakening Centers plant rumors because they know how powerful a rumor can be. Having a rumor that you have a gun in some ways is more powerful than having a gun. Um, and so with the Awakening Centers, what they're trying to do is plant the right rumors to stop the right people, or the wrong people, let's say, from coming over the fence. Um, the other side of it is, we'll give you our food if we can reach an accommodation around what you're going to do for us. So you can take a situation that is lose-lose and you can turn it around to win-win. Now, there's some folks that don't want to win. And if you look around our world right now, you can start seeing lots and lots of examples of that. When we are when we deal honestly with what we're looking at, we can see lots of people who would rather fight than win. They would rather fight than reach an accommodation where you have to work with the person that you are opposing. Where in order for you to win, you have to make it so that the other person also wins. Um, uh, the breaker world is a win-lose world. So if you win, that must mean I'm losing. Okay. So we need to change that to um, a world that works in such a way that everyone wins. We may have to change your goals and change your focus a bit, but in doing that, you get to win also. All of us get to win. Um, so uh, in a number of chapters, in this particular chapter, the Water and Energy Wars, um, the people trying to come through the gates with violence have to get an idea of what it is they want, and that idea of what they want is, do you want food, energy, and shelter, or do you want to hold on to an ideology that doesn't work? Which one of these things is most important to you? And without giving too much away, they work things out. The second chapter is managing the enemy. And the Awakening Centers, for a lot of different reasons, are very good at gathering intelligence. And so this particular Awakening Center, and I'm not sure, I don't remember where they're located. I don't think it matters at all. I was pulling place names out of the thin air. I still don't. Oh, Seattle. Okay. So there are two armed groups outside of the Seattle Awakening Center. They hate the Seattle Awakening Center, and they're about to join with each other. However, the Awakening Center has information that one of the groups, let's call it Group A, is going to have a violent takeover of Group B. So the security people at the Awakening Center actually go to Group B and say, Group A is going to try to take you over. And they are met with, let's say, very stiff opposition. Nobody believes them. And the folks at Awakening Center say, we don't care if you believe us or not, but they're going to do it. And if you are prepared, they won't be able to. And if you're not prepared, they will. And the idea behind that is that if you have a choice between one large organized group that is coming after you, and two smaller, weaker groups that are going after each other, you'll want the latter. And so this is feeding information so that your enemy stays at a manageable size. Now, ultimately, you want that enemy to go away. You want the enemy to stop being an enemy. But if that's not in the cards, if that's not going to happen, then you want to manage them so that they are not going to be taking you over. Okay, the third chapter, which was one of the most difficult chapters for me to write, was Fresno Falls. One of the things I hope you recognize, for those of you who read the book or are you just listening to me talking about the book, is that the awakening centers are disciplined. They have a game plan. They're running the game plan. They run into hiccups from time to time, and they got to deal with the hiccup. But they know what they're doing. They know how they're doing it. What happens when they choose to walk away from the game plan? They choose to not keep the discipline. And in this case, the Awakening Center that was outside of Fresno decides to just open their gates to everybody that's on the outside, because this is their definition of practicing love and peace. And that is practicing their destruction. That they said they couldn't stand watching hungry people, turning hungry people away at the gate. But if you don't do that, you wind up destroying your own community, and everybody starves. And that's what happens in that chapter. And it's a difficult chapter for me to write, because it meant writing down a decision that I would make, but not being happy that I would have to make it. Okay. Again, this is skirting across the top of a number of different chapters. I encourage you to buy the book. I encourage you to read along. And a number of times I've said to people, if you don't agree with it, rewrite the chapter. But you can't rewrite it to say, oh, there's no one with a gun in America anymore, so we don't have to worrying about guns. It's like, no, that's not reality. So you have to write it with the reality, the same conditions. But I'd like to see how you resolve these things. I'd like to see your conditions. I'd like to see what uh, how you would handle something like having two opposing forces. Would you try to manage them? Would you just try to keep them all out? Kind of what would you do in that situation? Okay, so we are going to continue this process on Tuesday. And I don't know if I remember what Tuesday. Oh, um, so Tuesday is when we start getting into the latent powers. Okay, that Tuesday is when we start getting into how do you create a society where the majority of the people are telepathic? How do you create a society where um, you can work with people at a deep psychic level automatically? Um, again, in the book, it gets really interesting. So I look forward to talking to you at that time. And until then, we should hold our inclusivity mantra, um, focusing first on ourselves, then focusing on the other, each other, then focusing on on who we are, we being the people who are transforming the world, and then focusing on all beings. Okay. May I be well. May I be secure. May I be happy. May you be well. May you be secure. May you be happy. May we be well. May we be secure. May we be happy. And may all beings be well. May all beings be secure. May all beings be happy. Thanks a lot, and look forward to talking to you next week.